Hi friends, in today's video I thought I'd share my planning routine. I think that planning in some form is a pretty important part of trying to find balance in your life. Taking just a few minutes to do so can help you clarify your goals, priorities, and thoughts. It can help you make an actionable plan, and it can ultimately help you get more done than if you had just been completing things aimlessly. Theoretically, it should also help to reduce your stress levels, and if you do it for long enough, it can be a good tool for self-evaluation. I think that it's particularly essential for those of us that have visual impairments because we often don't have the same 24 hours that everybody else has. Depending on the nature of your impairment, maybe it takes you longer to do things, or possibly it takes you longer to travel to places because you can't drive, or maybe you have to rent out some special equipment to get work done. Whatever the reason, planning can help you better prepare for that added time commitment in the short term, and in the long term, it can help you figure out how you best work. So, in this video, I'm just going to go over what I use and why. I plan on making a separate video going over the various methods and mediums that you can use for planning at a later point. If there's anything you'd like me to talk about in that video, let me know in the comments down below. Finally, before we start, a quick note. My planning system is what currently works for me given my lifestyle and personality. Even after doing this for a while, what I use and how I use it is constantly changing, and I love to experiment with adding and removing elements from my system. My intention in making this video was to give you some ideas and inspiration, so take what you want and leave what you don't. No one thing will work for everybody, and that's okay. If you take anything away from this video, it would be 1. Finding what works best for you will likely require a ton of trial and error, and that's okay. You can learn as much from your failures as you can from your successes, right? And 2. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. With that out of the way, let's get into what you guys clicked on this video to watch. My planning system has some physical and digital components. Starting with physical, I use a bullet journal for about 70% of my planning. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically a planner that you set up yourself. I'll put the link to a video from the original creator explaining more about it if you're interested. Fair warning, if you Google bullet journal, you'll come across some of the most elaborate aesthetic spreads you can imagine. And while it's super amazing how creative people can be, the strength of a bullet journal is in its simplicity and its customizability. Its essence, what's best is what works for you. Bullet journaling works well for me, and it's the planning method that I've stuck with the longest. My journals basically act as a catch-all. I use them to plan out my days, track habits, set goals, capture my thoughts. I really like the freedom that it gives me in determining what I plan and how I plan it, and I like the emphasis on self-evaluation. Also, because I have control over what the spreads look like, I can fit them to my visual needs too. I've gone through a lot of spreads, but this is what currently works for me. Every month, I set up a one-page opening spread that has a small calendar on one side and a place for tracking events on the other. I also have one page dedicated to a task list and another page that's for a habit tracker. After that, I set up my mental inventory, which I may or may not fill out each month, and then finally I have my schedule. This all takes me about 30 to 45 minutes to set up if I'm not rushing. Next, I set up a weekly running task list that keeps track of all of the tasks that I want to accomplish that week. That takes me about a minute to set up. And then finally, I set up like a little daily header, which is just the date and the day of the week, and that takes me like 30 seconds. After that, I write down what I want to write down that day. That can include tasks for the day, details about events that happened, or thoughts that I want to keep note of. And before anybody asks, yes, I do like journaling physically, even though my vision's not that great. It's just a preference. I like writing on paper, though I have been experimenting with digital journaling. I will leave a link below to a PDF copy of my January spread in case anybody wants to take a closer look at it or try digital journaling with me. Also, let me know if you want more bullet journal videos. Moving on to digital, I use Apple Calendars and Notion. Apple Calendars is used primarily to keep track of events and deadlines, and sometimes to time block depending on how structured I need my day to be. Since deadlines and events can change pretty easily, I found it easier to keep those things digitally where I can easily adjust them. It's also easier to keep people updated when you have a shared schedule. I have separate calendars for work stuff, home stuff, family stuff, YouTube stuff, and I color code them so that I can keep track of which is which. Finally, I primarily use Notion for project management. A lot of its functions make the process of creating content just way more organized. I can create templates for pages I keep reusing, I can categorize things, I can look at my schedule in different views, and it makes it easy to add new ideas. Plus, it's available on basically any device, so I can access it easily. As for my routine, usually at the end of the day, I like to sit down, take stock of what I've done that day, write down any loose thoughts, and plan out my next day. This is also when I'll update any trackers or calendars. If I don't do it that night, I'll usually do it the next morning. I think it really helps me to focus in on what I want to do that day. At the end of each week, I'll set up my weekly spread for next week, loosely plan out my next week, and vaguely reflect on my last week as I transfer everything over. And then at the end of the month, I'll do a full monthly reflection, and I'll set up my spread for next month. And that's it. Let me know what you guys use for planning in the comments down below. Also, let me know if you have any suggestions about what I'm doing. I'm always open to trying something new. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.